So today's gathering is to give you some insight information into your course next year called Station Operations. There's usually a lot of anxiety because people think that this defines what you're going to do in radio and for the rest of your life, and it's not. We're here just to tell you what that exactly means, what you'll be studying with that course, and then where that pathway can take you, okay? So the first thing we should probably tell you is radio operations, or station operations, is only 4 hours of your curriculum next year. You're still learning a lot of other aspects of radio, and you're continuing your learning in the foundation of learning that you are taking right now. This just merely enhances you, gives you kind of like a major, a pathway, a specialty in that area. With that choice of station operations, that 1 4-hour course, also comes some responsibilities with the radio station, 96.9 Radio Humber. So we will talk a little bit about that as well. So let's get right into it. Your 4 pathway choices, and then we'll start getting some more in-depth into it. Creative production. Your prerequisite for creative production pathway is Pass in Radio Lab. Creative production people are the creators of content at a radio station. Responsibilities include, for that pathway, in addition to taking that course, rotating writing and production shift, technical production opportunities for Radio Humber. Then we also have the news pathway. That's your news broadcast journalism pathway. And you'll see beside it 0202, that's the section you're primarily in. That might change. So it might be listed 02 and you might see yourself in an 01 section. The prerequisite for the news broadcast journalism pathway is 75% average in broadcast news too. They're the information providers on a radio station. So they do news, sports, current affairs. If you like interviewing, that might be a good pathway. Again, Paul will get into that a bit more. In addition to the studies, you need to be ready to do a weekly on-call rotating reporter shift and non-flexible radio news shifts and at Humber responsibilities. At Humber is the noontime current affairs information show that we do. The other 2 pathway choices, announcer, and I know a lot of you came into Humber wanting to be announcers, so today will give you a bit more of insight into that. Again, if you're passing Neil's announce class, that's great, but that's not good enough to get into the announce pathway. You need a 75% average, okay? You are the hosts of music, entertainment, traffic, and light content programming at a radio station. Your responsibilities will include non-flexible air shifts in addition to your class schedule, weekly scheduled voice talent production shift. So the reason why we do the 75% average for the on-air, the talent, the performing roles, is because we have to make sure you're up to par, because you're going to be missing classes for these shifts, and we have to know that you are at a place academically where that's not going to be a problem for you. So we have to have a 75% average in those two areas of study. Last but not least, of course, is the marketing and sales pathway, and that would be obviously a pass in sales development 1 and 2. You would be the sales and marketing representatives in media. Responsibilities for that pathway include call on real businesses to explore advertising and events for Radio Humber, and Dean will get into that a bit more, and addressing and acting the part. So this is very much the business aspect of radio. You're going to have a sheet that will give you the opportunity to really kind of assess what you're picking and why you're picking it. You'll see that it's double-sided, and on one side you'll see an order of importance. What are your 4 top interests in radio? Out of those 4 interests, what top 3 do you feel most comfortable and confident doing? Out of those 3, what are your top 2 marks? And out of those 2, which are you prepared to make the sacrifice for? That should whittle it down to the pathway choice. And these guys and gals might say differently, but that's how you can determine it if you're really struggling with what you want to take next year. And the sacrifices, when I say the word sacrifice, that is different to everybody, but basically what we're talking about is if you take this pathway and this is where you think you want to go, understand the kind of sacrifices you have to make for that particular career choice, right? Moving out of town and out of province, which most of us will have to do anyway, regardless of your pathway. Willingness to work shifts, holidays, weekends for the first 3 to 5 years of your career. Willingness to start out making little money, having to subsidize it with a second job. You know, are you up for the competition aspect, and are you up for the rejection aspect? Because some pathways are a little bit tougher to make it out there than others. So this is just an area for you to evaluate everything you need to kind of figure out for this, right? So the first person you're going to hear from is the creative production pathway professor. Greg, you want to talk a little bit about some stuff in creative production pathway?
Okay, so we mainly focus on the creativity aspect of both writing and production. So I know in first year you learn a lot about the format of writing, writing for clients, things like that. What I try and get you to do is now think outside of the box and become really creative. So we kind of throw out a lot of the rules and just get you to sort of start thinking outside of the box. Once you get into the real world, they sort of start to put you back into a box dealing with clients and things like that. So I want you guys to take the opportunity to really think outside the box and have a lot of fun with your creativity. And we take that from the writing aspect and we put it into the production. We move you away from Adobe Audition that you're spending most of your time on this year, and we start working on Pro Tools, which is more the industry standard. And so there's a lot of studio time involved. There's a lot of working on your own. And then we also have 4 assignments that you're responsible for working on your own. One of the big ones that we do is writing radio imaging for Radio Humber. So you write and produce all of the imaging that you hear on the radio station right now. We just create a whole bunch of new stuff. We send that over to Dean and Travis, and they make sure it gets on the air. So there's a little bit of sense of pride. That's one thing that, for those of you who are slightly uncomfortable speaking in front of a microphone, and I'm one of them, so I get it. The one nice thing about creative and production is your work takes up a large amount of airtime, and you get to sit back and listen to it without having to put yourself out there. So there's a little bit of personal pride in knowing that when you listen to a radio station, your work, your job has a big impact on the sound of that radio station. So it's a good, challenging career. It's a lot of fun, but like Sheila alluded to, it's when you first start out, the hours aren't so great. There's a lot of weekend stuff, but you know, we can get into that later. There's also going to be this is going to be new for me next year. Two students once a week will be responsible for a 4-hour prod session, doing stuff, whatever Travis and Dean need done that week, 2 students will be responsible for. So you'll get some hands-on training and you'll have immediate results on anything that you produce will end up on Radio Humber. And then we'll also be responsible for doing some remote setups and teardowns, which is great for a technical background, to be able to walk into a studio or a remote session and know how to plug in a microphone and how to set everything up properly. It's so helpful when you're in a studio and things aren't going as you had planned. To be able to troubleshoot properly makes it eases a lot of anxiety and it makes you look really good. So that's it. That's basically the creative and production pathway, and I look forward to seeing most of you.
Hello, everybody. You see, you wouldn't have creative if you didn't have things to sell in the first place. I think that's a good thing to think about. If you want to drive a nicer car than you're driving now, have a weekend home, and a really nice home at home, you want to be in sales. That's where you make all the cash. Every other position will make you poor, except morning shows. So I think that covers it. I think we're good. We have a lot of fun in the sales group. You're going to hear from a couple of folks shortly. Thank God I didn't choose them to be here today. One of them is Patrick, who's just in our current pathway right now. And you'll hear from Shenley Brown, who was with us 2 years ago, who's living an illustrious life up in Barrie right now. The sales marketing pathway is really a kind of a different thing that a lot of people don't think about when they think of radio. People think about, well, you know, how do you get paid? How do things happen where we bring revenue in? And that's what the sales pathway does. We focus a lot on promotions, marketing, and sales, some of which you're taking this year in bits and pieces. But the bigger part of it is how we market and promote the radio station. And also we sell airtime, as Sheila alluded to. You get a chance to go on the street to actually sell real airtime and get paid for doing that. And even if it's a career that you don't get into forever, the skill set that you learn in sales and marketing and promotion is something that will carry you through in a whole bunch of areas of your life. So we have a lot of fun with it. We're working into digital marketing as well. We're doing on-street events as well. tear downs, as we've talked, and setups with special bands, things that are happening throughout the community and that as well too. So it's an exciting area. Thanks, Travis. And we have a lot of fun. So we'll talk around the table. If you have any questions or you want to know where we're headed with that, great. And also we've got two other really good people who are currently in the pathway and just through it as well that can help you out as well.
All right. Well, if you don't want to be trapped at home by that new car and that new home, news is a great way to see the world. So seriously, let me just tell you a little bit about what we do in news. In the news pathway, you're going to do newscasts on Radio Humber. You're going to do interviewing for the public affairs show at Humber. You're going to do another documentary, and you're coming to the end of your first documentary now, and they must be going really well because I haven't had any panic messages and everybody's still smiling, so I think the documentaries are working out well. You would be doing the news you do on air includes news and sports and weather. You can cover Humber sports. You can do all kinds of things like that. We have a couple of specialty shows. Obviously, the At Humber Public Affairs Show. We look into the Humber Sports Drive, the sports show, and who knows what else we might come to in the future. Your assignments in the pathway would require you to do at least an assignment every week. It talks about 5 before midterm and 5 after. You know what? If you didn't cover something that week, you wouldn't have anything to put on the radio. So it's really creating the content you're going to use. In terms of creating the content you're going to use, the news pathway, I think, really brings together a lot of the skills from a lot of your courses. You're going to be interviewing. You're going to be editing audio. You're going to be producing voiceers or raps or a documentary. You're going to be using news production studios. You're going to be on air live, using Burley live on air. Who's the pathway for? I think, to me, one of the most important ongoing values for a news person is curiosity. Curiosity. If you're the kind of person who hears something and says, I wonder how that happened, or how could that be, or why, then maybe news is the kind of thing you want to do. That's what I would say. And you've seen what's going on in the Twitter sphere this morning, all the things Bob Summers at Chum FM is reminding me about that we've done together in news and such. Been a lot of places, met a lot of people I never would have met otherwise. Been places I never would have gone otherwise, except I did it because I was a news guy. I'm not trying to sell the pathway. I'm just trying to talk about some of what I think are the merits and why I'm so pleased with and proud of the news career that I've had so far.
He thinks because I'm a newsreader, I can't ad-lib, so you're taking away my notes, right? Ditto to much of what Paul said. When you come to the final semester and you're in the pathway with me, the goal I see for you when you're with me is to get you industry ready. That means you are ready to go out and work in a newsroom. I'm fortunate that when you come to me, you are so well trained with Paul. You know how to interview. You know how to work Burley. You know how to put a story together. You know how to write a story. We just continue to work on these things and make you better every time out. You really have to, Paul mentioned why this pathway, and I don't want it to sound like a sales job, but I think Paul and I are both on the same wavelength in that we're passionate about news, and we love what we do, and we love what we've done in the past. And I hope that I can convey that passion to you in this pathway. Who should take this pathway? If you love news, obviously. If you like to talk to people and you want to get to know people, this pathway is for you. I've always felt that news gives you an entree into a world you would never otherwise have. And that is that you can pick up the phone and say, I'd like to interview Police Chief Bill Blair. And when you're at a radio station, he's going to call you back. So that to me is exciting. In addition, you get to be in the front of a news story. You get access to, when you're driving and you see a fire and you're wondering what's going on, what's happening. Well, for most of us, we just have to drive by and turn on the radio later that day and find out what's going on. But as a reporter, you get to go stand at that tape, and then you get to talk to the fire chief, you get to talk to people, and now you're getting firsthand information that otherwise you would never have. So that has always been the thrill of news for me. So I hope if you're curious, as Paul said, you love talking to people, you just live and breathe news, then this is for you. And I really hope that when you finish this semester that you feel what I feel, and you really feel ready to go out and tackle the job, as I'm sure Matt Carty, who I taught last semester, probably feels. And I hope that anybody who takes the news pathway will share, you know, the feelings that Paul and I both have for radio news. One other thing I will mention, there's a lot of work, and Jessica Bellamy will probably tell you about that. She's in the news pathway right now. You need to be prepared to work hard, but that's what the job entails. But the rewards, maybe not the fancy car, maybe not the big house, but it's the satisfaction of doing something you love. So every day that you get out of bed, you don't dread going to your job. News, it's something different every day. In most jobs, you can't say that.
Well, if you like driving an '84 Corolla and living with mom, then announcing is the pathway for you. No, I'm just kidding. You're a performer, and you love to tell stories, and you love music, and you love popular culture. You love being the person who kind of brings all this stuff together, the production aspect of radio, the current events. You're very much a current event junkie as well. But you like to do something else. You like to take that listener by the hand the minute they wake up in the morning and help them get on with their day, help them make their day a little bit better, a little bit brighter. And you love talking to them, and you love that companionship aspect of radio. Rather than the burning building that you have to stop at, you see a concert, and you have to go to that concert and interview the performers because you know that there's a story to tell there, and playing their music, discovering new music, and getting it on the radio. Maybe becoming a music director or program director is in your medium to long range plan. If that's the case, then announcing is for you. You're passionate about telling really great stories on the radio. That's what makes a good announcer. And you've done a little bit of that now with the ad-libbing we've been doing this semester. And much like Greg said, you know, we like to kind of take some of those rules away from you once you get on the air, because there are going to be very tight restrictions on you in the professional world. So we'd like to hear you really kind of branch out and do some really creative stuff while you're in the announcing pathway. And then when you make that transition to the professional world, you know exactly what's going to be expected of you. And when they say, go do it this way, you can say, yep, I absolutely can do it that way. And you're fully prepared for that. So you're an inner performer, and you've got stories to tell, and you love music and popular culture. That makes you a good announcer. It's hard work too, right? You're going to do on-air shows a couple of hours every single week, along with traffic reports and entertainment reports too. So lots of hard work. It's certainly not an easy pathway. It's hard to be creative, right? Radio is easy to do poorly. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of creative talent to make radio really sizzle. So hopefully that's where you're going to be at the end of the announcing pathway this time next year.
Yes, and actually we're going to keep with Dean for a moment, because from the pathways to the transition of the real world comes your practice run at the real radio station here at Humber, 96.9 Radio Humber. Dean Sinclair, in addition to teaching, announcing, and sales and a few other topics, he also runs the station. He's the station manager, so he oversees everything. So he's going to talk a little bit about, see, he's already talking to me and telling me to run up, as a station manager would do, but he's going to talk a little bit about how those pathways fit in the Radio Humber 96.9 environment.
Thanks, Sheila. I just had one additional comment about announcing, because Neil and I tag team it. You want to make enough money in your first bonus to buy your next Porsche. Announcing, not news. I think we got that covered off. That's good. 96. How many of you have actually heard Radio Humber live over the air 96.9? None of you. Okay. It's a great radio station. We have a really unique situation here in Toronto in that we get to play in the largest market in Canada with radio. And you get to practice and you get to learn, and it's a really neat area because some of those places you want to work at in your first, second, and maybe your third job, those companies are based mostly in the GTA, and they listen to you. And make no mistake, they listen to you. It's evidenced by some of the folks you're going to meet today that are doing internships and working full-time in some of those larger and mid-sized companies. And that's pretty cool in itself. There's a lot of things that are really unique about Radio Humber. One of them is that we're the only radio station in Canada that plays all Canadian music all the time. And just to go a step further, our entree and our interest in new music, especially Canadian music, is huge. We actually boast a larger playlist of new music than Indie 88.1 will in their lifetime. But we really have a great connection through a bunch of the people who work here. Paul heads up an amazing program, as you know, with Unsigned. The Lakeshore program that we have with music here. We have a playlist of about 3,000 plus songs, Travis? 4,500 songs, can you believe it? That are actually produced and performed by faculty and students at the Lakeshore campus. The largest instrumental jazz playlist in Canada, which is kind of cool. We just got a new license from the CRTC in January. We're now called a community campus radio station, which means we reside basically in the 411 of this area. But it also means that our job as the community is that we are a complementary radio station to what happens in the GTA. And so what that means is we really don't compete directly with anybody in terms of the types of programming we do or music per se. We complement what happens. And so we also get to tell a little different story here. If you take the campus here of 25,000 odd students just at this facility, plus Lakeshore, plus Orangeville, plus faculty, we have a pretty huge community and a pretty wide-reaching universal community as well. So I think that's pretty neat. It's a great radio station to work at, and it's a great place to start. From an equipment standpoint, most operations will tell you that we're pretty much on par, if not ahead of some markets you might work at. And I think some people that have left here, whether it's in creative, in news, or in announcing, have gone on to find that's the case. We keep upgrading our studios and keep tweaking them and making things better. We're on cutting edge technology with remote broadcasting, which is kind of cool. So what happens is how the pathways work is with the announcing area, which Neil and I work with together. You end up being slated to do music shows on the radio station, just like you would at any announcer at a commercial radio station, except this isn't on the internet per se. You okay?
Sorry.
No, it's all right. I was getting to the good part. So stop now. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun on the air. Big emphasis is, as Neil talked about, is really creating your personality. And I know in first year right now you're working on that. You're going to discover your voice. And we work on elements like multiple person shows. We go out of the box a little bit as well. But our big job here is to really prepare you for what's ahead, and so that we make sure that you get a gig when you leave Humber College, which probably is never, but that's okay. The news pathway works in, as Paul and Robin said. We create newscasts every day. We have features like at Humber. We do Sports Drive. We also have play-by-play opportunities as well with the Humber Hawks. We handle the basketball and volleyball teams. And it's a great opportunity. Plus, we've been actually stepping out of the box and working at some of the other arenas in town, all in cooperation with BRTV, which is the big blue mobile truck that you see in the back, which is high definition. And we have a partnership with Rogers Television in that regard as well. Creative production is a phenomenal pathway. Greg and John have put a lot of great people through this program. And it's not just sitting in a little dark room preparing really neat things for the radio station. We've come up with some really dynamic things for Radio Humber, great features, and a great opportunity. And so it really provides the imaging voice for the radio station, which is important. And of course, what's a great radio station with an amazing marketing sales team? And I think we've already talked about that. Sales and marketing, in terms of how we handle promotions, what's happening in the area, and the radio station. Kylie heads up our promotions team in-house. We have our sales team. Patrick is currently on that team, and Shanley was with us prior. You know, being out on the street and learning about how we handle marketing for the radio station and learning things that you're just not going to find anywhere else, it provides a great opportunity. So it's a lot of fun. So that's kind of the family of products that we have that make the radio station up. So there's a lot of moving pieces that happen every day. So there it is, Radio Humber.
Thank you, Dean. In addition to your class and the responsibilities with Radio Humber, there's also opportunities to get further involved with the promotional aspect. And as Dean mentioned, Kylie heads up the Radio Humber promotions team. She's going to have 1 minute or less to talk really quickly about recruiting and what you do and how they can reach you.
Yeah, so just to show of hands, who went to our big event at Lynx last week? Yeah, didn't see a lot of you guys out there. So what we're hoping for next year is maybe to connect the two. Like if you're working at the Edge, you're gonna go to Edge Fest, right? So why not go to your own school spirit? You don't have to go to a Hawks game, but come to a Radio Humber event. So we really wanna try and like make it bigger and better next year and continue the Band of the Month promotions. And I'm always looking for people who want to interview the bands each month. We can change it up. And any other opportunities. We have a good partnership with Audio Blood, a PR company that showcases a lot of upcoming bands and artists, and they always tap me for people who want to interview them. So if you're in news or announcing, that's always an option as well that we could talk about, as well as being on the promotions team and doing remotes in the Student Center or at a Hawks game or anything else that we come up with throughout the year.
Kylie will send me an email and I'll forward it all to you. So if you think this is something you can add to your plate next year, because there's also, we get that you have to work, some of you, and maybe some of you are going to try to dabble in an internship, and that's a lot on your plate with school and responsibilities. But if you can even come out for a couple of events and help out in a volunteer aspect, that looks wonderful on your resume, because one of the main things that employers are looking for is community involvement, and your Humber community counts as that. So if you can have at least that on your resume, not only is it great for you, but it's great for us because we get you out there as well. Okay, on to our pathway students, and they're just going to be really quick, tell you what pathway they're in and why they chose that pathway essentially and what they think. And it's going to be all constructive, isn't it, Matt Shepard? Yeah. All right.
All right, so the announcing pathway. First off, I'm Matt Shepard. I'm part of the announcing pathway in the second year. If you've kind of gotten a taste of... Sure.
Sorry, I'm going to tell them to stand up so that they can... I don't think you can see behind them.
Better? Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm in the second year announcing pathway. You've kind of got a taste for what you're going to be in for already with Dean and Neil. If you like kind of what you're doing so far, definitely try and pursue announcing. I was kind of torn last year between production and announcing. Very happy I went with announcing. I know it's got the kind of higher grade average, but you get to learn a lot. Dean and Neil are great instructors. They'll really help you kind of polish what you're doing, find your sound, create a brand for yourself, and really open up the doors for you and what you can do on air. It's a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of different announcers, a lot of personality. You end up working with the production crew in the fourth semester. You get to lend your voice to a lot of spots, ads, things like that. And once you get a hosting shift for the first time, you'll either love it or hate it. And most of you, I'm sure, will love it because it's basically free reign of doing what you want, storytelling, and it's just a good time overall. And if you're not doing that, you're T&E, and that can also be a lot of fun, especially with pop culture and everything that's going on. Yes, exactly. And yeah, so if you like what you're doing, if you like the taste you're getting in class, definitely go after it. It's a whole lot of fun, and I swear you won't look back.
I'm Alana. I'm also in the announcing pathway. At first I was in production, and then, I don't know, I didn't think it was for me, so then I switched to announcing. I didn't really like hearing my voice and stuff like that. So anyways, I ended up switching to announcing, and I absolutely love it. I love being on air. It's so much fun. You get to go online and search for a bunch of like crazy things to talk about on air. Doing entertainment is my thing. Like I like doing it, talking about celebrity gossip, stuff like that. And then you also get to talk about like stuff around Humber, so you get to know about all the events. So if you want to check stuff out, listen to Radio Humber. And yeah, what he said pretty much, you get to work with the production guys. So you even get to hear like voice some spots, and then they get to run on air, which is pretty cool too. So yeah, I don't know. It's basically what he said.
I'm just going to interject because she was in a specific situation where she changed pathways. That's not. I kicked her out. Yeah. That's not an option for everybody because we traditionally had a waiting list with announcing. It just happened to work out for Lana, and it happened to work out within a time frame that we were able to make that switch, and she had the 75% average. So, so when you choose your pathways, they're pretty much set in stone. This was an exception to the rule, but it can happen if it's if a good case is made and it's early enough where you can catch up. You know, after 3 weeks, absolutely not. Within the first 2 weeks, we can discuss it. But again, if there's no guarantees, we can make that switch. Okay, thank you.
So I'm Frank. I'm from creative production, and our job is pretty much to make these guys sound good. If you're a creative person, I'd definitely recommend you take this portion. It seems like a lot of the group stuff that we do, you kind of tend to be the leader if you're in the production role, because you're the one who takes everything, makes it sound better, and you can really take something that doesn't sound that great and make it sound really good. So turning something from like a 65 into a 70 or even to an 80. I wouldn't recommend, though, if you think production's like the easy way out. A lot of people thought that, hey, I don't want to do announcing shifts, and they thought production was going to be no problem. No, production takes up a lot of your time at home on the weekends. You have your production shifts. You always got to try to contact these guys to do stuff for you. And also, if you like doing character voices, this is the perfect thing for you because you get to kind of experiment, do your own thing with it. But yeah, overall, it's fun. If you're creative, I'd say definitely go for it.
All right, I'm Patrick. I'm representing sales and marketing. So when I was sitting in your position, I kind of was struggling with this idea of sales because as people coming into radio, everyone thinks kind of on-air positions, and no one really thinks about the background of sales. But the truth is that radio is a business. If you guys want to get paid, someone has to go out and get that money, as Dean will teach you. I decided to take sales because, one, me and Dean share the love of nice, fancy cars. But all jokes aside, it really teaches you a lot because I took it mostly because I didn't know about sales, and it's where I felt I could improve the most at. When I was sitting in your position, Travis also taught us that sales and marketing is where the most jobs are right now in the industry. So that really sat with me in the sense that I didn't want to travel that far out from home, and I wanted to kind of stick around here, and there's more jobs in sales, marketing, and promotions. Another thing is that your pathway doesn't define you, it's what you want to learn more about. So as I'm in the sales pathway, I'm also doing an internship with Z103 as the morning show assistant. So I'm learning kind of on air that way, and you can really take away different things from this program. You still are taught by the world's finest. I still have Paul Cross, I still have Neil teaching us the other parts of radio, and you can kind of learn everything. You can still join the promotions team. You can still voice commercials for these production guys who always want more voices. So it's really what you take away from it, and sales has something that you can kind of still be around radio, but also kind of make some good money at the same time.
I'm Jessica, and I'm in the news pathway. And I chose news because for me, it's the best of both worlds. I get to write and I get to perform on the radio. And because we have such a small group this year, I'm on air for nice long chunks of time, 5 hours, with a newscast every half hour. So I'm able to really hone my skills and to write efficiently, effectively, and in a voice that speaks to the Humber community. And I love the aspect of being able to tell stories and interview people here at Humber and also downtown, and go to events and really get to really build confidence. I'm a pretty shy person, and so when it came to developing content for a public affairs show at Humber, I had to get out of that comfort zone and just throw myself out there, and I did, and I feel good about it. And yeah, that's it.
Great, thanks, Jess. Okay, so those are the pathway. We can give them a hand. Thanks, guys. So they're your current pathway students. So when we're sitting in the round chair table situation, you know who you can kind of find a bit more information for. Now we're moving on to the graduates. So these are the people who within the last, I think, just 2 years, right? Michelle and Jen just left 2 years ago. Shenley a year and a half ago. Matt and Jesse just left last year. So they're really relevant and can really speak to where their choice of pathway took them. They're all working, and they're going to introduce themselves, tell you which pathway they took, and then talk a little bit about where they are in their career. Thanks. Michelle Zadikian first.
Okay. Hi, my name is Michelle Zedigan, and I work at 680 News. I do traffic and news anchoring. And I took the announcing pathway, and what had happened is after my first year, during that summer, I wanted to do an internship, just any internship at all, just get it done and over with. So I applied everywhere, and I ended up at 680, and I did that internship. And then when it came time to graduating, I was looking for basically any job in music radio. And so I was applying everywhere. I sent out like probably 100 resumes, it feels like. And I ended up sending, I just wanted feedback and critiques on my work from Radio Humber. So I ended up sending a traffic report that I did on Radio Humber to my newsroom, the 680 coordinator that I had kept in touch with. And she liked my stuff, so I asked her for a job, and she's like, actually, we do have a position open. So I just took it, and Radio Humber really makes you the complete broadcaster. So even though I took the announcing pathway, that's why I was able to take a news job in radio, because they just really round you out and get you doing every little bit that is like in the radio industry, and you get an like experience in all of the pathways. So yeah, and I'm actually really happy that I ended up in news. So it's not like totally, you know. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Jesse LeClaire, and I graduated last year. I work for 97.7 The Beach in Collingwood, Wasaga. I took the announcing pathway, of course, for a few reasons. I was very passionate about music, and when you're in news, you don't really get to dance to music in the station either, so, do you? Okay. Well, when I was in school, during 4th semester, I started an internship with Humble and Fred, which was a lot of fun. Now, after I graduated, for the first couple of months, obviously, I was sending out tons and tons of resumes, and you have to be very persistent and be ready to be able to do that, and you have to have a hard skin too, faced a bit of rejection. And then I got a job as a board op at 97.7 The Beach. That lasted for about a month before they put me on air, and I've been doing that ever since. And Sheila did mention this before, I believe, but sometimes as an announcer you might have to get a second job. I'm only part-time at the station right now, so I'm working another job as well, and that's fine. I'm still doing the thing that I'm passionate about. One job I hate, one job I love, so there you go. And yeah, you just need to be willing to go, be very persistent with what you want to do. And I'm working at a station that I thought I'd never work at. I always wanted to go work on a rock station, something like that. It's got a demographic of 25 to 54 with a female skew, which is something I thought I would never do. But the skills that you learn here really help you to kind of own in and focus on those certain things. It's a very heavy community-based station, so because of the things I learned here, I feel very confident in doing that, going out and representing the station and stuff like that. You get to have a lot of fun as an announcer, whether it's being on air or going out representing the community. Sometimes you'll be on air, people will just call you to chat from within the area you're working, and that's really cool too, because people know who you are, and it's weird. But yeah, either way, it's a lot of fun. And the other thing, when you're a student, lean on your peers. That's what a lot of us did in our year. Be constructive with each other and be critical, but not too critical. You guys will really help each other out.
Hello, I'm Shenley. I work at Chorus Entertainment, so not in Toronto. I work up in Barrie, so what they say about going to a small market first is true. I'm going to tell you a little bit why I chose sales, and then I'll go on to the revelations I've had in sales. When I came to this program, it wasn't actually for sales. I was studying for my LSATs, and it was a way for me to not pay back my student loans. So in between the two time frames, right? I came to the program, I fell in love with it. It was just kind of one of those things. A lot of people in sales say they fell into it. I loved it. So when I was choosing my pathway, there was kind of 3 general areas I was looking at. One was announcing, obviously, because you come into it, you think like fame, stardom, that's great. The other was the news, because I have a Bachelor of Journalism, so building on what I knew. And again, sales, because I have a Bachelor of Management. So the business, the numbers, it intrigued me. Interesting part, the way I chose sales was actually talking to one of my peers. I didn't know what I was good at. I wasn't really sure where I was being pulled, and somebody else that was an entrepreneur in my year said, you know, I think you would be good in sales. So I really took that to heart. I talked to my professors, do that, it really helps, and I ended up in that program. So, you know, Humber will really lead you towards a choice, right? But what I found is that when I was out in the workforce, it kind of convinced me that my choice was right. So right now I'm working for Chorus again in Barrie, B101, Che today and the Peak. And what I found in sales that is really, really interesting is that it's not just the cold calling, the meeting people all the time, the presentations. That is not all of sales. You do creative writing. You know, you're the person that meets with those people, those clients. You're coming up with a concept with them. I just came up with a concept for a whole commercial, and now it's being played on AM 640 and on our station. So you get into that. You're doing production. You go into the production studio, and you have an idea of what the business is. So you find the good music bed with the production people. You know, you're presenting, obviously, which is the sales aspect. You're doing news, because if any of my clients are, say, supporting Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or, you know, anything like that, I'm going to the news people and saying, hey, can we do a story on this? And then again, it's sales. So you have a little bit of everything, and it's really important to know that sales isn't just like pigeonholed into cold calling and being on the street, because that freaked me out at the beginning, like did not like it at all. It's a great learning experience, and really, guys, talk to the professors, talk to the students that you're with, because they may see something in you that you don't really see. But radio is really, you work together. So know that this might seem like a huge decision, but you can always change. You work with everybody in a radio station. And that's all.
I'm going to come over here more, because I feel like I'm getting away from the crowd. Okay, my name's Matt Carty. I work at AM 640 in Toronto, and as Robin alluded to, I was a student here last year. So in a year's time, I've been quite busy. About a year ago, like I said, I was a student here. I also had an internship at AM 640, and around that time, I started applying for jobs. And one of the jobs that came up was actually doing traffic for a company called CTN. And what CTN is, it's based out of Markham, and a lot of radio stations, through the power of radio and through the magic of radio, they will contract out their traffic reports to CTN. So CTN does traffic for AM 640, Q107, The Edge, The Jewel, a whole bunch of radio stations, News Talk 1010 sometimes as well. We even do a station in Ottawa, and it's all done through the ISDN line, so it doesn't sound like it's coming through. It's not like we're doing it through a phone. We do it through mics. It comes out clear. You'll have no idea on the other end. So what I applied to that job, and during the summer they had a position opening for a weekend cottage country traffic reporter. So basically, I would cover all the roads in and out of Toronto, heading up to the cottage. So that was a summer job that I took on. So obviously I graduated Humber, and as fate would have it, during the summer, 2 people quit at AM 640, 2 part-timers, so 2 positions became available. And so obviously when the position came down on Milkman, I believe it was, you need your 2 to 4 years experience of all this. And so I didn't really have a shot at it, but I applied anyways. Instead of actually doing the actual going through the process of going through Milkman, sending the email, all that stuff, I contacted the news director, who I knew already from my internship. I also knew the assistant PD, I knew the afternoon anchor. Coincidentally enough, they're all Humber graduates. So I just talked to all of them, and I said, what do I have to do to get this position? And we went from there. Obviously, the news director was the one I was talking to, and he said, go through the processes of applying for the job through Milkman, sending me your email, we'll put it at the top of the list and we'll consider you. So that was fine. And I sent my resume off in the end of August, I believe, and I get a phone call in September, said, hey, come in for an interview. And it was pretty weird doing a formal interview with a guy you joked around with in your internship. But that being said, it was the connections that I already had that got me back into the radio station, because he said, you really should be going out to a small market right now and doing that process, and just like everyone fresh out of university or college, that is. But we're going to bring you in. It won't be the greatest ride ever, because the only position that we're going to give you is weekends, evenings, overnights. And I said, you know what the hell? Why not? We'll do it. And I'm still there. That was September. I did my first newscast on air and haven't looked back since. Now, but just by a show of hands, who's set on news? Anybody really? No? Nobody? Wow, this is going to be tough. 1, 2. What about sports? A couple of sports? All right. Sports, with sports, you'd have to do, you kind of want to lean towards news because it gets you into the interviewing process as well. Like, nobody's going to jump right in, especially because there's not a sports pathway here. You're going to have to, best way to get into the sports market is to go through news, because that will get you your interviews down and all that stuff. But that being said, you guys are in the right place. I mean, Humber is a fantastic school, and regardless of the pathway that you choose, you have great professors that will lead you in the right direction. And I'm a terrible example, but regardless of the pathway that you do choose, you can still explore other options, because now what's happening at where I work is, like I said, the assistant brand director I got to know, he said, you know what, we realize you're not getting a whole ton of shifts in the newsroom. We'll teach you to be a board op. So now I'm board operating shows. And then after that, he's like, okay, we like you on the board op. Let's start you screening some shows. So I started call screening some shows for the Andy Frost postgame show. So you get a lot of crazy sports fans. And in doing that, you get to go to the games and talk to the players and talk to the coaches. And so that's my jump from news to sports if I wanted to do that. And now they're just starting to do some content producing. So basically that job is you work with one of the hosts about what you want to talk about today. So it's a really, like I said, regardless of the pathway you take, and Michelle's an example of this as well, you still have those other options once you get to second year and even once you get into your career path. So, yeah.
Thanks, Matt. And last but not least, our creative production pathway graduate, Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm a creative writer at KX94.7. I actually started as a board op at Chorus in Hamilton. And being a creative production student, I feel it made me a real utility player at the station. I was, on more than one occasion, asked to jump into something that I really wasn't comfortable with or didn't have any experience with, but because of my background and the stuff that I learned at Humber, I adapted, I learned, I drew on the knowledge that I learned from the professors here and was able to jump into situations that I wasn't necessarily comfortable in, but had a lot of fun doing it anyways. So I actually got interviewed for a board op position there and didn't get it, lost it to another Humber student who I was in class with, but kept my head up. I ended up taking an internship there instead, so if you can't get paid to work for free. I highly recommend that. So my internship, I ended up, when I first graduated, my head was set on I am doing production, creative production, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, that's what I loved. But I found more of an opportunity for me to practice my skills in writing at Chorus, and I actually really fell in love with it, and I love writing now. And so, I was given a lot of opportunities. I did volunteer a ton of my time, and it all eventually led to me getting a board op position, which I was doing. It was about a year that I was there doing board ops. I did overnights on the weekends. I was also able to, I did weather reports every hour. I ended up, having to cover shifts for other producers, so I got into some content production. I ended up, being a co-host on a couple of shows. I board opt for Ticats games, and, it led to all these things that I didn't have any idea that my creative production pathway would lead me to running a Ticats game on air. That's not something that I ever imagined, but the skills that I learned here definitely helped me be able to do well at that kind of thing. And so I volunteered, even as a board op, I still volunteered my time as a writer because I loved doing it, so I was in really close contact with the creative department there, and they essentially let me build a portfolio over the year that I was volunteering my services, and this job came up at another station in Hamilton, you know, a competitor. So, hey, I'm going to try to go there. So because I had the portfolio of the year that I was doing writing for free, I got an interview for the job. I was floored. I didn't think, you know, it had the whole 5 years experience, that kind of stuff, which I didn't have. But yeah, I learned so much here, and I feel like it really made me a real well-rounded individual. So that, you know, translates into me getting really good references from where I was, and, you know, having a good attitude is huge in this industry. If you feel like you're entitled to anything, or you're not willing to put the work into it, it's probably not going to work out for you, because, you know, the radio setting is it's a family setting, and everyone always wants to help each other out, but you have to give as much as you receive. So anyways, I ended up applying for this position as a writer, and I had my interview, and I had the interview on 3 o'clock on a Friday, and I got a call at 9 a.m. on Monday saying, you know, we want you in here, and I was, you know, so happy. And this is honestly, I'm 30, I've had, you know, a few different careers. I've been through finance, I've been through, you know, a few different jobs in my life. Actually, right out of school, I had 3 jobs, because I got a mortgage to pay, but right now, where I am right now as a writer, I am the happiest I've ever been in my life. I love my job. You know, you do touch all the other departments. I actually am the backup producer as well, creative production, so that's awesome. I get to still do, like, you know, I get to do everything I love there. Not all the time, but, you know, I deal with sales a lot. Salespeople are... some of them are awesome, some of them are a little demanding, but, you know, and I have great relationships with all the announcers there. And I've also been asked, because we, you know, all of a sudden are short, people leave, I've board opt at KX as well, even though it's not part of my job. But, you know, I've thrown in a couple extra hours there, and I have a lot of fun. And I just feel like Humber really taught me, you know, everything from A to Z, and you learn a ton when you get out there, even more than you ever thought you would. But having a good foundation, and, you know, take as much as you can out of this program, because everything that you learn here will help you. You'll remember something Paul said to you one day when you're trying to do a weather report or something like that, you know, like just these random things that just pop into your head. But try to take as much out of it as you can. And, you know, if you're a creative person and you like a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job, creative production's a good way to go.
Good, thanks, Jen. So thanks to our graduates who came in today. And in case you didn't really keep track, I think I counted 3 out of the 5 of them whose internship kind of directly or indirectly led to their first job in radio. So it's really important. That internship, people think, well, you know, I'm doing this for free, and it's not for free. It's an actual accredited course. I know that there's some controversy here, but it's 160 hours, and if you make the most out of it and you make the best impression, it will lead to greater opportunities.